Hey, all you scruffy looking nerf herders out there, my name's Wyatt, and guys, I have some interesting news for you today. And guys, first of all, before we even get started, you guys are probably confused because usually I have two of my buddies with me. Well, it's just me today. Blake, Brenner, they're not here for this video. This is just for me. Guys, I have some interesting news on the Star Wars front, and I kind of want to talk about it with you guys a little bit and kind of get your guys' gauge on it. But I kind of wanted to give you guys my gauge on it as well. But it's the news about Jon Favreau doing an interview, and apparently some people saying that this interview, he said that his show, The Mandalorian, Rangers of the New Republic, all of that is going to lead into the sequel trilogy. And I find it very interesting, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. But it's going to be a short video today. We're just going to discuss it. I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on it. I want to show you guys the interview. I want to show you guys the source, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on it as well in the comments down below. But before we get started, guys, if you're new here, welcome. We would be honored if you would join us. Thank you for joining in. We would be honored if you guys hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and make sure you guys hit that notification bell so that you guys are notified every time me, Blake, and Brenner go live. Every time a scruffy looking Nerf Herders video goes up, you guys are always notified. So let's just jump right into it, guys. So throughout the week, I've been getting messages from friends, family. I stream on Twitch, and a lot of my followers know how I feel about the sequel trilogy. I don't hate the sequel trilogy. I love the sequel trilogy. Love's a strong word. I appreciate the sequel trilogy, and I appreciate what it did, and I appreciate what it tried to do. 7 was fun. It was very interesting. It was a very good movie. I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. 8, not a fan of it. I know there are people out there that are fans of it, and I respect those that love that movie. Seriously, I do. Beautiful movie, great movie. I just, for the Skywalker story, I'm not a fan of it, and we're gonna get into that in a later video when us three rank our favorite Star Wars movies. And then 9, I thought JJ did a good job of trying to right some of the wrongs that he thought happened, and to also kind of bring it back to what he wanted to do ultimately. But people know my feelings on the sequel trilogy, and they know where I stand on it. So they've been letting me know. They've been saying, hey, did you see Jon Favreau admitted that it's going to tie into the sequel trilogy? Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see he said that everything's going to tie in, that it wasn't even his idea to have Luke. It wasn't even his original plan, so on and so forth, all this stuff. And after about 2-3 days of this, after about a day or so of this happening, since the story broke, has only been a day or two, I started to kind of look into it, and because I hadn't seen the interview yet, and I hadn't seen what happened, but I looked into it. And guys, if you just Google Jon Favreau, Favreau, however you guys want to say it, I've always said Favreau, but I hear people say Favreau. But if you Google Jon Favreau and scroll down till you see the news stories, or if you just click on the news tab, it'll literally be the first one. It should literally be the first one, or at least it is on my Google when I look it up. And the first article that pops up, and I'm gonna pop it up. I'm either gonna put it right here for you guys, or I'm gonna cover the whole screen with it. So an image should be popping up right about now, and it's from a website called Deseret.com. I think this is the site that broke it, guys, but I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. And before I get into this, guys, I just want to let you guys know that myself, Brenner, Blake, we are not insiders. We don't have inside sources. We don't have all these guys, all these other YouTubers that have these inside sources and stuff like that. We don't have that. We're just three guys that love Star Wars, know a lot about Star Wars, and are very, 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 very much connected to the characters and the stories that people are writing, which is why we care so much about what's happening. So we're very much in tune with what's going on. I pretty much follow every bit of news that drops. I see everything that happens, and I'm hearing every rumor. So I'm gonna have more of these videos for you guys, and then me, Blake, and Brenner as the trio will cover everything more kind of in depth in our longer podcast that we do. But ultimately, we don't have inside sources, guys, and we just want you guys to know that. But the first thing that you guys see, and it's literally on Google, the title you guys are seeing, it's literally this: The Mandalorian will lead to sequel trilogy, showrunner Jon Favreau says. Okay. That's my first intrigue. That's my first bit of intrigue. I see that and I go, okay, let's click on the article. Let's click it. Probably clickbait, but there might also be some truth to it. So I click on it, I go to look at it, and literally when you scroll down a little bit, you don't even need to scroll, it's literally right underneath the title. You guys can literally see it right now. The Mandalorian showrunner Jon Favreau admitted the show will lead into the sequel trilogy. Okay, so now it's piqued my interest. Now I want to read his quote, right? Now I want to see what he said. So it's an article written by Herb Scribner. I'm not sure who Herb Scribner is. January 31st, that's 2 days ago at 8 p.m. So let's scroll down and let's read this article. And I'm going to read the article for you guys. I'm going to have it up on screen so you guys can see it for yourselves. And no, I'm not skipping anything. Okay? So we start at the top. The Mandalorian showrunner Jon Favreau recently hinted that the Disney Plus series will lead into the sequel trilogy. What's going on? Favreau talked about The Mandalorian in a new interview with the Writers Guild of America. So he did an interview with the Writers Guild of America, and this is where this interview came from. He said the showrunners needed to understand... This is not the quote yet. I'll tell you when the quote happens. He said the showrunners needed to understand how the show fits into the Star Wars timeline, especially as the sequel trilogy is 30 years in the future from when the show takes place. So, 30 years. We still have 30 years of history. Now here's the quote, okay? Quote from Jon Favreau. Having an understanding of how story fits into not just our series, but the Star Wars universe. That's something that requires a very collaborative approach. The collaboration is what inspires me to be able to go home and type and write scenes alone. We found a very interesting, cool balance that's about as fulfilling as anything I've ever worked on in my whole career. End quote. He has a second part, but this is what the article says between it. Favreau said he didn't have the show planned from the beginning, and the storyline has unfolded as he's written about it. It's my first little red flag there. I'm like, not necessarily. He's saying having an understanding of how not just our series but the Star Wars universe, that's something that requires a very collaborative approach. Collaboration is what inspires me to be able to go home and type and write and scene. We found a very interesting, cool balance that's about as fulfilling as anything I've ever worked on in my whole career. And then he goes on. So he didn't say it in there, so that's kind of throws you off a little bit. The next quote, the next part of the quote is where they're saying basically that he had no idea. He had no plan from the beginning. The story unfolded as I wrote it. Very clear. He's a writer. He knew what he was doing when he went into it. He had a baseline plan. He had a skeleton plan, and that skeleton plan was that he wanted to do a story about a Mandalorian. He didn't know what he had an idea of when he wanted to take. He had all these plans laid out. He didn't have the story set in stone until he started writing. I mean, that's how stories work. So obviously it unfolded as he wrote it. I mean, things are going to change. Things are going to come into his head, and he's going to change, and he's going to rewrite things. I mean, that's just how things go. The story unfolded as I wrote it. The Mandalorian inherits a great deal from existing Star Wars stories, and when I write, that context is always a consideration. It became clear that within the established continuity, certain things were likely to transpire. End quote. So that's his quote, right? I didn't hear at one point in that quote he admitted that it was going to connect to the sequel trilogy. He didn't once say in that entire quote that it will connect to the sequel trilogy. So all these articles, it's clickbait. And I mean, to kind of finish it off here, it says, as I wrote for the Deseret News, Favreau said in the same interview that it wasn't always the plan to bring back Luke Skywalker into the show, though. Okay. Kind of finalizing that out there, they kind of changed the subject right off the bat. But to kind of answer that, I don't necessarily think... I think Favreau's lying. I think Favreau's lying there. I think Favreau ultimately always had the idea to bring back Luke. I think they wrestled with other characters to bring back for that scene, but I think ultimately Favreau and Filoni knew Luke was the character they wanted to bring back, and ultimately in the end, they decided Luke was the best choice, Luke was the only choice, and that's how they needed to do it. So on. The title of the story: The Mandalorian will lead to sequel trilogy, showrunner Jon Favreau says. The Mandalorian showrunner Jon Favreau admitted the show will lead into the sequel trilogy. I'm going to let you guys decide for yourselves and tell me down in the comments what you thought. But I can tell you right now, guys, being an intellectual human being, he did not once in that quote say The Mandalorian, Rangers of the New Republic, Ahsoka, all these shows we're doing are going to tie into the sequel trilogy. He did not for one point say that. When I'm thinking of that, when I'm looking at his quote, I'm like, the only thing I think people can think of that would even remotely encompass what they think he's saying is when he goes, "It became clear that within the established continuity, certain things were likely to transpire. And The Mandalorian inherits a great deal from existing Star Wars stories." Yes, existing Star Wars stories. For those of you that have seen The Mandalorian, you guys all know very well that The Mandalorian is very heavy on prequel, Clone Wars, Rebels, and original trilogy themes, right? It took so much from those existing Star Wars stories. And those are all Star Wars stories that are established in the continuity. So where in there did they say... Where in there did Jon Favreau say it will tie directly into the sequel trilogy? So I'm going to let you guys kind of decide for yourselves on there. I'm just reporting what the article said, word for word, verbatim. Jon Favreau's interview, word for word, quote, verbatim. He never once said that, guys. And listen, I'm not a proponent of the idea of retconning the sequels. I don't fully believe that they need to be retconned. But if they're going to do it, and they're going to do it correctly, then I'm on board. If they're going to make my childhood hero growing up, Luke Skywalker, if they're going to make him a hero again, if they're going to make him a stud again, a bonkers hero, man, if they're gonna make him great again, then I'm on board, man, because they ruined him in 8, and we're gonna talk more about that in a future video with the guys. But they ruined my childhood hero, which is why that movie is so bad to me, because they ruined my childhood hero. And we can get into it more, and I can talk to you guys down in the comments. I'll answer the comments, and we'll talk about it. But I will give you my full in-depth review of that movie whenever we get that video up, which might be in a few weeks. But guys, listen, if they can also write the stories, if they're not going to retcon them, and they can write their shows, they can do their stories leading up to the sequel trilogy and make what happens to Luke in the sequel trilogies, make what happens to Luke in 8 make more sense, I'm on board. If they can make it make sense, I'm on board. If it can't make sense, I'm not on board, and they're gonna lose me. But ultimately, guys, from what I'm seeing, and I'll do more videos on more of this stuff, and we're gonna talk more about this stuff too in the podcast. But I think they're retconning the sequels. I do think that they're planning on retconning the sequels. I think there's a possibility that Kathleen Kennedy is out the door when her contract is up at the end of the year. I think she's silently going to kind of slide her way out. And I think she's going to ultimately give up power in Lucasfilm, and I think that's going to kind of... I think Favreau and Filoni are fully in the driver's seat here, and I think Iger and Chapek are kind of riding their coattails. I think they're with the guys through and through, and I think everything that happens with Star Wars moving forward is basically kind of up to these guys moving forward. I think Kathleen Kennedy's kind of just a figurehead now. She really has no power, but like I said, guys, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought of that article, because like I said, that article didn't say anything. It said that he admitted to the shows leading into the sequel trilogies, but you saw it for yourself. You guys heard for yourself. His quote never once said that at all. Like not a single word of his quote said it's leading into the sequel trilogy. It just said it's using established continuity, which is obviously 1 through 6, Clone Wars and Rebels are also established continuity. Han Solo and Rogue One. They're all established continuity as well. And it said existing timelines, existing stories. And those are all, everything that it did used those. And I think he's watching what he says very carefully, because I think he knows, and I think most people also know kind of what's happening here. But like I said, guys, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you thought. I think people saying that it's leading into the sequel trilogy I think it's all clickbait. I think they're clickbaiting you guys into reading the articles. And if they do that, guys, read the article. If they clickbait you into the article, read it. Seriously. Read it, because you're going to see for yourself that that's not what he said. Okay? Guys, thank you for being here for this video. We're going to have more of these. This is kind of my first attempt at kind of not branching away from the guys, but doing more short little 10-15 minute focusing on the news that's dropping, and kind of letting you guys know what's going on in the world. What are some rumors? What are some news? What's some Star Wars news that we're hearing? What's Marvel news we're hearing? And we're going to go deeper into it in the podcast with the guys. And the guys are going to have some of their own videos as well. We were kind of talking about that today. They're going to have some of their own videos that they're going to do separately to kind of widen the channel, basically, to a different view audience. And but guys, thank you. Like I said, if you guys enjoyed the video, if you guys enjoy the content and you guys want more content like this, hit that like button. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you guys join our community, what we're trying to build here, because we love it. And make sure you guys hit that notification bell, so every time a new video goes live, you guys will see it, okay? Much love from the scruffy looking nerf herders. Love from us to you guys. We love you guys. May the Force be with you. And look at some Star Wars stuff. Love you guys.